All right, maybe we can get going again here. I think we've got quorum in the room. I just need a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the Health and Social Services Advisory Committee meeting of January 17th, 2019 be received as information. Mover, Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next, that the minutes of the Recreational Facilities Advisory Board meeting of February 26, 2019 be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Michele, Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that is carried. That the minutes of the Recreational Facility Advisory Board meeting of March 18th be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rabbits, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. That the minutes of the Recreation Facility Advisory Board meeting of March 25th be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Huffman, Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. That the minutes of the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board minutes of March 18th, 2019 be received as information. Councillor Huffman, or Councillor Martin?
My apologies, Mayor Chop. I wanted to speak to this. Should I have pulled it? Am I still able?
No, I think we could speak to it right now.
Okay, just a couple quick questions for tourism staff. To Ms. Dusling, we had emailed a little bit and your staff did provide me with quite a bit of information. I guess I wanted to just take this opportunity to speak publicly about the minutes under item number 7, page 205 on the TDAB minutes. It speaks about the budget implications that council made cuts through to the department, and then it lists a variety of cuts and what they manifested into. I guess I was wondering if Ms. Dusling could take a minute and just share with us maybe why these cuts materialized into the things they did. And my motivation behind that is I heard from some community members, board members, that this information was not necessarily well received. And I think it's important to note that although council does have to take responsibility for making cuts, that's the job that we are here to do in one way, shape, or form. And I want it to be well known that these cuts materialized into these line items because of staff's direction to make them in those line items. So I wondered if we could get some information to share with the public as to why these were the items that were cut.
Through the mayor to Councillor Martin, I'll start by saying that these cuts were, I think, both a combination of senior leadership team cuts before they came to council for budget, as well as a combination from council's deliberations at budget session. Primarily, we focused on the print media advertising that way, feeling that at council's direction as well that we could do more items within our social realm. And also with our new communications team, which would give us some new opportunities that we haven't had before. So we're happy to look into that newly this 2019 year. There were some, I know, Councillor Martin, you received some other information that went into more details other than the advertising. And I did want to make a correction. I know the student startup program, there's been some questions about that in the public and also from yourself, Councillor Martin. We are moving forward with the SUP program this year. We're intending to do it a little bit different than we had in the past. Usually in the past we've gone out and solicited businesses who have supported the program. This year we're looking at hopefully supporting that internally somehow. We're still working out the details with our finance area. And we will be providing grants. They will not be advertised as well as they were in the schools last year, but we will again be doing a social media campaign of the program and hopefully get some buy-in with our students in Norfolk County that way. And then we will be summarizing the campaign the same way we have in the past, where the students write a report and then they're provided the second part of their grant. So that's our intention for the SUP program. And I'm happy to answer any other specific questions you have.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Ms. Dusling. I know the student startup program has been successful thus far, and I was under the impression, that was another point I wanted to clarify, that there is a bit of an opening in a staff position per se in your department, and that is directly related to the student startup. Although I'm sure cuts are relevant, it's not directly related to cuts as well. There was some staffing issues, but it was my understanding that this program was funded by business owners previously. So are you saying now that this is something coming off of the council budget or the levy to fund this program?
Through to Councillor Martin, through through Mayor Chop to Councillor Martin, we're looking at opportunities with finance right now. So I can't confirm that answer today, but we're looking at opportunities with finance.
And will that be shared with council before a decision is made?
I'll look to my friend, Mr. Johnson, to help me with that.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Martin. So when we were investigating the budget line items related to this program, there was one of my staff found some areas related to, before I comment further, I'd like to confirm the information, but it's something that we were investigating. And by all means, once we do investigate where the budget line item is and the descriptions, we can perhaps either do an email or an information memo back to council. I'd also like to mention that these items that are in these minutes were part of the February 20th budget deliberations, and you can remember that long list of items that SLT brought back to council. All of these items were within that list, just to make sure that council and the public know that we were transparent with those cuts with council.
Councillor Martin, anything further there?
Thank you, James. I guess the point I was driving home was that the department did have some say in what reductions were happening, and that there are changes coming out of the department that we're going in a new direction. And the reason, my intention behind bringing this up was that people were maybe concerned about the guide or concerned, but there are other things happening. The student startup program, that was a concern of mine. I am interested maybe to hear more of the dollar value that would come from council for that startup program, if that time would come. But anyways, this was feedback from some board members. We've got some new members as well, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to allow you to speak to some of that. Thanks.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I took a little flack over some of these too, and I think one of them was a legitimate concern, like on example, the guides in the map, that we have businesses and farms that pay a fee to be included in that, and now they're looking at paying the fee and not having the same service. And there is a balance there somewhere, and might be something to revisit on whether you adjust the fees or work out a better maybe not decrease it by so much, and try to get the best bang for the buck. But they're paying for a service and they're not getting what they think they're paying for.
Thank you, Councillor Van Passen. I too have had a lot of feedback from the public on these cuts, in particular things to marketing into the magazines, and those are the things that we need to be focusing on. And yet there's a number of areas, I think, within that department that even you hear rumblings through the public of things that maybe could have been considered, as opposed to directly targeting the magazines and so on. To be blunt, I think that there's time spent, staff out, spending nights at various locations and so on within Norfolk County, and I think that those are probably the areas that we should be looking at and not cutting our marketing budget, because that's what's going to drive tourism to Norfolk County. So I don't know, in terms of the student startup program as well, I don't remember that ever sort of forming a part of a discussion. If we have businesses that are willing to support that program, and they have in the past, why would we be putting this on the levy at this point after a budget's already been passed?
So through you, Councillor Mayor, or Mayor Chop, my apologies this evening. Good questions. Usually how that program works, again, is we have a staff member who has a strong skill set in working with our local businesses that work with them to solicit that money. That program is usually started well in advance of April. We have a temporary person in that position that doesn't have the same skill set. So we're looking for creative opportunities to keep that SUP program moving. So we're looking at allocating funds within our current budget for tourism and economic development in DCS to keep that program running this year. We are in a little bit of an awkward situation this year, but we know the importance of that program for our community and want to see that it follows through.
If it involves raising funds from businesses to be able, I can't remember, what was the dollar figure that was attached to the student program? Do you remember that they raised?
I don't
roughly
remember right offhand.
I don't, I mean, it wasn't humongous. We're talking about small donations. I remember handing one out to one of the kids at the symposium. So I think that there is an opportunity, even the people that we have on our tourism board that probably would be willing to pick up the phone and call some businesses and raise some money as donations that would be more than willing to continue to support a program like this. So I don't think that, with all due respect, that it requires a huge qualification to be able to go out to kind of solicit some support from businesses. And I think that there's members on the Tourism Advisory Board that would certainly be willing to approach businesses that they knew. That might be a better approach than directly putting it on the levy. Any further questions? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board minutes of March 18th, 2019 be received as information? Councillor Martin, Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next is that the minutes of the Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation minutes of January 16th, 2019 be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rabbits, Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. That the minutes of the Norfolk Heritage Committee minutes of January 28, 2019 be received as information. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Columbus, and seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, now we're into the bylaws. So, motion that bylaws 2019-09, bylaws 2019-15, bylaw 2019-16, bylaw 2019-29, bylaw 2-OP-2019, bylaw 18 Zulu 2019 be approved, signed by the mayor and county clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Geisens, Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Van Passen.
Have we made that amendment to bylaw 219-29?
That was the one earlier. Okay. So next up is a motion that's been moved by Councillor Huffman, that resolution number 35 of the council budget deliberation meetings of January 23rd, 24th, and February 20th, 2019 be reconsidered. Is there a reason this is all together? Okay. So as a result of this being a reconsideration, I will let Councillor Huffman speak to this, and then it will require a 2/3 majority to move ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. So just to, I guess, get the guidelines here. So I am basically speaking as to why I would like this motion revisited. I'm bringing this motion forward to revisit this issue, right? So I can kind of explain why I feel, okay, all right. Just want to make sure I fall within the parameters. Well, actually, I guess our last discussion that we just had moments ago lends itself very well to this discussion, is that lots of things happen during budget deliberations that happen quickly, they happen swiftly, and I think sometimes we're not really aware of what some of the ramifications are. And especially noting that that was our first budget deliberations, and we knew that we had to get some cuts in there. I feel after, I did not support the cuts to the training and development from the beginning, and probably due to that fact, I had several staff members and community individuals reach out to me to express their concerns. So I did my due diligence. I got the information from those individuals, and then I went directly to their direct supervisor to get some direct information. So I conducted a meeting on March 8th with Heidi Van Dyke, the director, and got the following information. So there were 3 staff that were, I'm going to speak to just this specific issue and then we can go forward after, and the reason I'm bringing it forward. There were 3 staff in Health and Social Services who were affected greatly by the cancellation in regards to assistance for tuition. The 3 employees that I was made aware of are long-serving employees of the county. Together, the 3 employees have over 60 years of working with Norfolk County. The I can get into I'll just stick with this. I'm going to go. Essentially, the breakdown of the impact to our budget in regards to these 3 particular individuals was employee 1, $1,700, employee 2, $1,500, employee 3, $1,200. Total budget, $4,400. Plus, there is a 50% Ministry of Community and Social Services reduction of $2,200. So we're now dealing with half of that amount. Then there's another reduction further of $800 from the Haldeman contribution to this training and development piece. We are now left, the levy impact for these 3 staff who have over 60 years experience working with our county, the impact to the levy is $1,320. To me, that is a small price to pay for a commitment to long-term staff. These staff are not planning to get degrees and often go running to someplace else. And I would like to say that often I'll hear from people, you know, if you train your staff, they'll leave and they'll move on. And I guess my question in regards to this issue on a whole is that if we don't invest in our staff, what are the consequences when we don't allow them to pursue training? And I'm also curious as to how that works in terms of our professional membership fees that some of our staff have to pay. So I would just like to respectfully ask my colleagues to have a longer and further discussion regarding this budget cut item. Thank you.
Councillor Hoffman just said that she did not support this resolution when it was brought forward. I do believe our procedural bylaw says that somebody makes a request for reconsideration has to be from the winning side. So is this a valid or is it different because of the budget process with the resolutions?
That is correct. Okay, moving on then. We are, do you want to go into closed session at this point then?
I think you've got a couple more motions. You've got your, this 40.
Okay. All right, so next I have a motion moved by Councillor Huffman and seconded by Councillor Michelli, whereas Jason Gordy of Simcoe has represented Norfolk County in the 2019 Special Olympic World Games in Abu Dhabi, and whereas Gordy won gold in the 10-pin bowling competition, and whereas Gordy's victory follows a triple gold medal performance at the 2018 Canadian Bowling Championship in Prince Edward Island. Therefore, be it resolved that County Council declare the date of April 13th, 2019 as the Jason Gordy Day in Norfolk County. All those in favor? And that's carried.
There's just,
Okay, the next motion before us is moved by Councillor Huffman, that Councillor Huffman be appointed to serve upon the Council Program Review Committee. The motion requires a seconder. Councillor Rabbits, any discussion on the motion? Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This committee did meet yesterday and basically came to the conclusion very quickly that since we now have an interim CEO in place, that maybe this committee should step back and allow the new CAO to look at the entire situation a little bit and maybe reconvene the committee after the summer break or in the fall. So I would suggest that this motion be premature, so I move that we just defer it till after the summer break.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for the deferral? Councillor Martin, and all those in favor? Okay, that motion's carried. Okay, and now we're going back. I'm sorry for the confusion here. I just didn't know when we were going back to the beginning of the agenda. So I just need a mover and a seconder that council move into closed session at, or Councillor Columbus.
I had some confusion about page 235, Councillor Huffman's request, and I didn't realize that we finished with it. And I did support that motion on February 20th, whatever it was, I recall, because I thought it was important to have training for our staff. So where are we with this right now? Is everybody else confused?
Well,
Yes, Councillor Columbus, we are
It was
confused.
filed in the agenda, was it not, as Councillor Huffman moving the motion? So that was the point of order. So she had moved it, and she was not able to move the motion, and she was the one that put the notice of motion forward, right? It was a notice of motion brought by Councillor Huffman. It came to this council meeting as a motion, and it was not properly brought forward as that was the point of order. And so I don't believe that it's within our rules to be able to then go and ask that somebody else move it.
Okay, what Councillor Van Passen shared with us was, can you clarify that for me, please? Why we were out of order?
I just questioned that Councillor Huffman stated she was opposed to that motion when it was made. So I assumed that she was on the losing side of that because it did pass.
And I was in support of that motion, so can I call it that we look at it again? I think there's confusion around the council chambers here.
Yeah. Just had a meeting yesterday. Just hired a bus yesterday.
They can't bring it back if
Well,
I thought you agreed with that one. I just,
they, what I said.
yeah.
Yeah, I said that, right?
I'll let you take it away.
Only 14.
Councilor Michelle, you're good.
Councillor, can we let the deputy clerk just address this?
Through the mayor, so the procedural bylaw states 19.4, so before accepting a notice of motion to reconsider, the mayor may ask the member to confirm that he or she voted with the majority on the issue in question. So do you recall, Councillor Huffman, did you vote with the majority?
So in regards to speaking to vote with the majority, you're talking about during our budget deliberations when the issue came forward to make the cuts to the training. I would assume I did not vote in favor of that.
Okay. So you did not vote with the majority? So you did not vote in favor of reducing the cuts?
I believe so, yes. And so, again, this would be where I would, from the clerk's department, where as council member, that this is the direction that I received
Yeah.
for bringing this forward, so.
Okay, with the mayor's and council's permission, would this be okay if you left it with me and I look into it and we could perhaps bring it back on the 23rd?
I'm fine personally if Councillor Columbus wants to move it on Councillor Huffman's behalf.
You mean right at this time? Deal with it right now?
Might as well.
Yes, I will move that.
Yeah, you voted
Thank you.
for it.
Councilor Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just for clarity, so I understand now that Councillor Columbus, you voted for this, and now you're going to make this motion. Is that correct?
Right.
You're
Correct.
moving this? Okay.
I'm
Because I misunderstood. I thought you said you voted against it originally, and I was concerned that we had two people now voting the wrong way. So thank you very much. I think now we are clear?
Okay, so this will require a 2/3 majority vote to open this back up. So a seconder for Councillor Columbus in this case then. Councillor Michelli? Okay, and could I ask for a recorded vote on this one as well, Stephanie?
Is this just to open the reconsideration?
To open the reconsideration on the matter. And further discussion at this point.
Okay, through the mayor, so the recorded vote would be to reopen the Resolution 35 of the budget deliberation meeting, so just to see if this item can be reconsidered. We'll start with Councillor Geisens. Councillor Ravitz?
No.
Councillor Columbus?
Yes.
Councillor Martin?
No.
Councillor Van Passen? Councillor Huffman?
That would be yes.
Councillor Michelli?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Chop?
No.
It's defeated. There's only 5 that voted for it, so.
Okay, next we're moving back into closed session. I have a motion that council move into closed session at 19:22 PM